continuing with the Crafty Counsel series. Wow. Okay, there's a few things that I want to mention because sometimes I'll be led by the Spirit to say something to someone, and they're so wise in their own mind, they don't know it's the Spirit, right? And so I'm doing this little series in this group at this point because why does everybody keep messing up Romans 9 through 11? Well, I'll tell you why. It's because they don't go to God and ask for understanding. They go to man and they look up some stuff real quick on Google, and then they're all like, oh, this is what it means. Now, this dude somehow came to the conclusion that Romans 9 was not talking about the Israelites, but both the Gentiles and the Israelites. I guess when Paul literally says, my brothers of the flesh, all right, and then in Romans 10, he literally says, I pray for Israel. So, this is the thing. How do you blatantly lie and say this is not talking about Israel? That's where the Gentiles are at this point, because they have spent their whole career as Christians just taking up doctrines of men, having no understanding. And so instead of submitting themselves and be humble and going to God and asking and that kind of stuff, they can't do it. They can't do it because the pride, especially from their titles and all that kind of stuff, because I'm looking at this man that says this and he's got some kind of conference, some kind of stupid Christian conference, right? He could not step down from that to be humble and follow God in spirit and truth and understand what his word says. He couldn't do it. And so now he's going to unfortunately reap the repercussions for teaching falsely. That's how serious it is at this point. So I wanted to say that, the crafty counsel is like the lying, like blatant lying at this point. You are such a stupid fool if you're lying about anything, especially at this point. You're an idiot, all right? I said it and I mean it. That is such a dumb thing to be doing, but it shows you were never really about God like that in the first place, were you? Because if you were, you wouldn't be lying on his doctrines, on him. So, and you would keep in mind your end, all right? That's written somewhere. You didn't keep in mind your end. All right, you didn't think, oh well, I'm going to get judged if I lie or don't say this correctly, or maybe I should go to God and then maybe I should ask him specifically. So you didn't think about what would happen if you didn't do that. That's what's crazy about the situation. So there's that. The blatant lying, which is another form of crafty counsel. And then, I went to go sign up to serve for this retreat. The way they were trying to spin things as if I did something wrong, at this point, I'm like, it's in your bloodline to be a liar, a deceiver, a blamer, a manipulator. Alright, so I went to this retreat, and I actually put a video on YouTube about it. And, couldn't get the love from any of the other servers, even though they're talking about, oh, Dhamma, Metta. Metta is a meditation on love, and then Dhamma is seeing things as they are. Now, as a believer in Christ, I have learned how to serve through God and how to serve selflessly. The struggle is a little real right now because I've been doing that for a long time, and people are just taking advantage of it too much and all sorts of things. So, plus we're in the last days, all right? It's all a cycle, right? And so at some point you're going to come to the end of the cycle. So that's where we're at. We'll put it that way. But anyway, I had so much dirt on those leaves and I didn't even rinse off the leaves. That's alright. So I've been drinking this Louisa, and it's so funny how I came across it because I thought it was mint. It's not mint. It's lemon balm. And I said, oh, that's a lot of lemon balm. I don't know if I want to drink all that. But then I started looking it up, and I was like, this one lady, a couple people came up and said that lemon balm cured them of like Lyme disease. And I said, okay, well, let me see about this. And so I had this crick in my neck, because I don't know what was going on. I don't know, but it took away the crick in my neck. So anyway, moving forward, I went and I rocked out this servitude position, served selflessly everything. These people were they were trying to take advantage of me. They were in microaggressions, all sorts of stuff. And so I decided to leave early. I decided to leave a couple days early because I feel like I did my part. I served them to the best of my ability. I served the students to the best of my ability. And at that point, I was just tired. And I told them what happened, the microaggressions, like we're supposed to be practicing meta love, selfless servitude, even to people that you might not like, right? Tell me why they emailed me. It was like, oh, do you think that you can handle it? I'm like, I can handle it. They could not handle it. That's why they could not serve selflessly. All right? So, I think what happened is they twisted things and tried to make it seem like I was the problem. And this is the thing. You're serving in a Buddhist retreat, right? And you want to free yourself of whatever cares of the world or whatever it is. And you keep doing things that keep entangling you into cares of the world. Your lawless, sinful behavior. Your manipulative behavior. Your self-righteousness. Because, what I thought was interesting when I was serving these other people, it felt like you have all these jobs, right? Nobody said, oh, I'll just take whatever job. Nobody said, well, if you want the job more. No, it was like, no, I want this and I don't want to do this. And then I got put into doing something that I didn't really want to do, but I said I'm going to do it anyway. And then all of a sudden got pushed out of that, and then got pushed out of that. You're selfish people. So don't sit here and try to blame your selfishness on me. I did what I was supposed to do. And I know I did what I was supposed to do because at the end I had a conversation with one of the girls that was giving me microaggressions, and she kept thanking me because I broke something in her, a bondage. And the other girl, who God told me was going to come to him, said, look, I've been struggling with this meta thing. I want to learn how to do it better. She told me that, personally. So I know I did what I was supposed to do. But the crafty counsel of these nations, they literally cannot remove themselves from their behaviors. And then the fact that they just have a hatred toward us, Whew. I've been talking to, this girl. I think she's a believer. I don't know what she is, to be honest. I don't know what she is, but, she was kind of saying the same thing as me. Like, she feels as though she's kind of fed up with the microaggressions. What we were thinking was racism, but I don't think it's racism as much as what it is. Their spirit hates our spirit. But it's so obvious. Like, I've been traveling all of Colombia, and I'm like, well, not all of Colombia, but there's sometimes there's this feeling like what are you doing in this restaurant? We don't want you in our presence. So that feels like more so racism, because they're used to looking at this skin complexion and associating it with poverty or whatever it is. Which, look, I ain't rich. And your point, because guess what? You're on your way to hell. So I guess that money didn't get you out of hell in the first place. So continuing, doing the Donald Trump. Oh Lord. But then there's just people, you show up and it's like they're sneering at you. Oh, I can't stand. Like, I stayed in the hospital yesterday and the man just hated me, and I'm like, I literally did nothing. Like, literally did nothing, but it's the demonic spirits in them. So that another crafty counsel seems to be ostracizing, there's a lot of stuff going on right now. There's a lot of it. And so she said, I'm just so tired of it. And I said, I am too. But then I read the other day, like, God says something about his people crying out to him. And that's when he would take them out of, whatever it is that they were in. So, and that's the thing. You can't just sit there and try to hold it all in. Because I'm that type of person. I'm like, maybe I should just cry out and just, Abba Father, like, this is too much for me to deal with. Because it is a lot. It's you're trying to travel, trying to make sure everything is good money wise, make sure your hostel is good, make sure, and then you also have to deal with people's racism, their colorism. You got to deal with the spiritual attacks and all that kind of stuff. It's just like, it's a lot. So at this point, I'm kind of like,
so when it says,
is it worth it? I don't really know if it's worth it. But maybe it's that it's not worth it here. Because why do people usually come? They see the stuff in Cartagena or Cartagena, whatever, with all the black folks dancing and all that. And they're like, well, we came to party and that kind of thing. And so, I think that's why. And so I've been praying, where should I go? Because even though, I'm kind of past the traveling thing, like, I'm at the end of my journey, like, give me a couple more weeks and I'm finito at this point. What should I do concerning traveling? Because each country is different, right? And that's the thing. I don't think this is a place for too much, godly spirituality. South America is full of, like, Mary worship, Guadalupe, all right? It's full of satanic worship, and that's pretty much all that they do. But if I were to go somewhere, I don't know, like Ethiopia, and maybe things will be a little different, and even places in the Middle East, even Morocco, because I actually had a dream I would have my honeymoon there. Which is so intriguing because it was in Chefchaouen, and Chefchaouen is the place in which the Jews fled into during the Spanish Inquisition. And so I felt like God said, oh, well, you can go to Morocco, you can go to Ethiopia. I wanted to go to Vietnam. And so here's this thing, with Vietnam. Their creation story says that they came from a dragon and a fairy. And so, I think I'd be going there for the aesthetics, but perhaps I wouldn't get so much spirituality and healing. And the spirituality would be like what it was in Ubud, where they had that parade, all right? And it was a bunch of giant floaties of whatever gods they were worshiping. There was even Indonesians that were like, what is that? All right, do we know what we're worshiping? So I think I have to travel in accordance to God's will. And I want to say this very clearly for anyone who's out there listening. If you're a believer in Christ, travel according to God's will, especially in this hour. All right? Because I tried to go to Africa 2 years ago. God did not want me to go, but I thought for some reason I was going to sit my tail there and I was going to live there and it was going to be so cheap and $3,000 was going to last me 10 years. I don't know why. Look, Africa is not that cheap, all right, to travel. I don't know why. I really don't know why. I don't quite understand it because it's not like their standards are up to a lot of other countries. But it's like they feel like they should get paid the same amount for less work. Or at least that's what I was feeling like when I was in Tanzania and Uganda. I'm like, no. So they try to get what they can, but they don't give the same quality and that kind of stuff. But I don't think that's why he didn't want me there. I think it just was not time. Because I do think that is part of the land of Abraham. I don't think that I don't think it's just that land that they call Israel. All right, I think it's much bigger. So he didn't want me to go. Lost my passport, lost my Bible, lost my ticket for that reason. I was about $700 out. No, 900 and something because I had to buy a passport and a new ticket. Okay. So he made it very clear that, he didn't want me to go, but I ended up going anyway, ended up getting poisoned. So make sure that you are traveling by the Spirit of God, not by your own will. All right? The aesthetics can rob you of the Spirit, right? Because you're more concerned about where you're going and how it looks. And look, I can testify to this because I will pick very nice hostels, beautiful hostels, and Satan is running his hands all through it. I'm sitting in one right now. All right, because I said, oh well, I want to go to the spa, and I like the hostel that was in the other city. It's way worse than in another city. They are very much open about their satanic worship here. So, with that said, God still protects you. I believe he's still protecting me. But, it comes with consequences sometimes. So that's why you have to really ask God prior. Right? So that's another crafty counsel. Don't let people ensnare you by aesthetics. Alright, because you know what I find so funny? When I'm out and I wear my hair natural and these girls with straight hair, they'll start trying to fix their hair, like flex their hair. I don't want your hair. I'm perfectly fine with the hair that God has given me, to be honest. And I've learned that it's not really worth it to try to look like y'all or copy off of y'all or anything, because inwardly you don't really have what I want. Alright? So I love this one girl. She's from Uganda. I forgot her name. but she was going to win an award, some kind of social award. But she's a social media influencer, and she wears her hair natural, and sometimes she'll put flowers in it and that kind of thing. And the attitude of so many Africans, like, why there so many Africans are like, yeah, I'm gonna wear my hair weave and I'm gonna try to look Western, I'm gonna try to look like the colonizer and all that kind of stuff. But there's so many Africans that are like, hold on, why do I have to change my house? Why do I have to change my hair? Why do I have to change my skin? This is what God put me in. I'm not jealous of your hair. I don't want your hair. I'm happy being nappy. Okay? But you want people to be jealous of you. I'm looking at what you look like on the inside, and it's not a good look. All right? So if I could be happy with my hair, that's a much bigger goal than trying to look like you. It's just so fascinating, the counsel that these people use. The lying, the cheating, manipulating, deceiving spirits that these people have. That is about to literally get them wiped out in these last days during the day of judgment. And yeah, I'm realizing that a lot of people deserve it. Like, a lot of people, you are wicked. You're wicked. All right? And you basically said, not your spirit. Not your spirit, God. We don't want that. So you already put yourself in the place of hell. You're rejecting God's spirit, which is his breath. So you're rejecting life. And so what's going to happen when it's completely taken from you? Oh, they're gonna have you in there. They were such a good person. Meanwhile, in the background, they're trying to sleep with their cousin's girlfriend. Like, stop. Y'all are gonna get it. You're gonna get it. It's gonna be pretty bad. So, I don't know what to tell y'all no more. I think it's actually too late. One of them tried to, this Gentile, because we need to understand the difference between the son and the servant. I'm set on Isaiah 56:6. Isaiah 56:6 says, a stranger that joins to you who keeps God's Sabbath holy will enter into the kingdom. If you're not doing that, if you're not down with Isaiah 56:6, Acts 13:42, where it actually says that the Gentiles were begging for the word to be preached to them the next Sabbath. If you're not having respect of a feast, all right, or a new moon, or a point in time, then I'm sorry, but y'all Gentiles are not entering in. But you come to us as if you're the one that's supposed to have authority, not understanding the scriptures, not following God's precepts, all right? Delusional. You're delusional. You're not entering in. You're not a son. You haven't even been grafted into Israel, but then you want to quote Romans where it says there's no Jew nor Gentile. Yeah, for Christians then, right, that kept the Sabbath and the feast and the holy days. I'm sorry, it's the same thing, the new moons and these kinds of things. You're not doing the same thing as the people back then. And so I cannot believe it's like coming to a head. I think that's what it is. How have these people deceived themselves so much that they feel like they can just have authority doing none of what God told them to do? Like, that's wild to me. You're wild to me. You need some help, buddy. So I think they know at this point. I think there's almost like a guilt conscience there with some of them. But because of their pride, they refuse to humble themselves. And they definitely don't want to humble themselves before us because. But I'm like I say, you're a fool, all right? If you don't humble yourself to the truth, that's on you. Nobody's going to be able to pull you out the fire. All right, that I think that's what Hebrews says. Nobody can redeem you except God at that point. But when He says 2/3 of the earth will die, I wouldn't bank on it. So anyway, I think that I'm about done with this video. I didn't know it was gonna be 24 minutes, but here we are, waiting for my lemon balm to bomb. Because when I drink this, I'm gonna be out. Like a light bulb. I hope that you guys are blessed and stay real, stay in God's face, because He's gonna be the only one that's gonna be able to give you any kind of discernment in the first place. You know. So one more thing, so these people can. It's just more of it. I'm like, you're kind of throwing away your life at this point. Because what happens in about 20 years when you can't really do that anymore? See you later. Have a good night.
See you tomorrow.
See ya. What happens in 20 years? What happens? You gon' I don't even think we got 20 years. Shoot. Anyway, be blessed, y'all. Bye.